Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi there, Steve Arterburn here, and welcome to Life Recovery Today. So glad you joined me. I want to start by saying that I opened up the June Bible bestseller list, and there it was, Life Recovery Bible number 3. Now, of all the Bibles in the world, for that Bible to be number 3 is just so exciting to me because it means a lot of people in recovery are continuing to go to God's Word for their ultimate source of truth. What is recovery? And a lot of people don't like that word. If you don't like recovery, well, use the word restoration. I mean, that works. Recovery really is just a discipleship program. But I want you to think about another word that starts with R, and it's the word repurposed. When we get into recovery, it probably, or it isn't, because life has been so fabulous on the path that we've been on that we just thought maybe we'd add a few meetings and some work to it. No, it's because whatever we set out to do just didn't work, or we destroyed it because we're human. That's what we do. But you know what? God may have put us on one path, and we may have taken another path. But His calling of us isn't so much of what job we're going to do, it's how we're going to impact the world in whatever job that we have. The repurposed, forgiven life, now that's a life. And we're going to talk about that with a guy that's head of recovery over at Mariners Church in Newport Beach, Jack West. Started out to be a financial planner, now he's planning people's final days in recovery and restoration.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. One of the good guys, and there are a lot of them, some not so much, but one of the good guys is a guy named Jack West. We've always felt so close to Jack and what he does at Mariners Church. New Life started just about, I'd say, 6 or 7 miles from Mariners Church in Southern California. And what an amazing church it is. And to get on staff there, well, I mean, it's kind of what a lot of Bible college students and others would just dream of doing. So you got to really have your act together. So I'm happy to introduce to you the recovery pastor there and much more, Jack West. Jack, thanks for joining me on Life Recovery Today.
Well, Steve, it's good to be here with you today.
You know Life Recovery, you know the Life Recovery Bible, and you guys, well, I mean, you're really doing great work over there. You've got a wonderful wife. I think you guys have been married about 10 years, 3 kids. They're all under the age of 8. God bless you for that. And but tell us about your life. How did you, when you got out of college, where were you headed? What did you think you were going to do?
When I got out of college, did you say college? What?
Yeah, or Asbury Seminary or anything, whatever you did.
Well, the seminary story is 10 years after I graduated from undergraduate.
Okay.
So there is this story here of me kind of backing into the calling I now find myself in, and that's a recovery pastor. So as you said, my story goes through the road of recovery. But I left college, joined a family business, thought I was going to go start the career, the house, the wife, the 2.5 children. And my life did not start out that way. I graduated from college with a coke addiction and a pill addiction. And through the course of that, ran my life aground as you could be expected, and needed recovery and found recovery, and had periods of sobriety. And then I ended up getting married, and my marriage failed after 6 months. And so now we're a decade past that, and through that kind of found the next rhythm of recovery in my life. Because while I was sober from substances, I definitely found a layer of codependency in my addictive repertoire that brought a relationship down around my ears, and sent me.
Now, I want to stop you for a second, because I want to ask you a question.
Yeah, please.
What's so great about coke?
The drug.
Yeah.
Well, in my experience, it made me feel strong, confident, and it, we know neurobiologically, it just dumps an insane amount of dopamine into your system, which for a person who, now looking back and understanding the underlying causes, struggled with anxiety and depression. It was a quick fix.
Yeah. And so what's so bad about coke in your life? What was so bad about it?
Well, it's highly addictive, so it has your body just craves it, and so for me, it was quickly into overuse, and therefore my life was non-functioning, and so it brought it to a screeching halt. So it definitely runs fast. It ran through me fast and hard, and I couldn't sustain it.
So is the bad part that you do stupid things when you're on it, or it's so depressing and miserable when you're not on it? Which one is it?
Well, luckily for me, I didn't get into. I did a lot of stupid things. Don't get me wrong, and I hurt myself and a lot of people. But the consequences were not. It was more the other. The pain of dislocation and isolation, and really the depression. I'll never forget when I got clean. The first step of getting clean was asking for help and telling somebody. And I had been on a bender on a weekend, and I was at an absolute bottom and having some hallucinations and some very depressive thoughts that were very dangerous. And so I found myself in a familiar hole, but even deeper than I'd ever been, and it really, really scared me.
Wow. And so what was the key to starting the recovery process? What happened?
Well, to be quite honest with you, it was just being so overwhelmed with not being able to fix the problem. So by the point that I asked for help, I knew that I had a problem, and I knew that I needed to change. So I was moving into that realm of saying, I've got to fix this. And so at that point, I thought I had to do it on my own. And because of the shame of being found out, because a big part of my addiction was it was a secret. Too many people in my life that I cared about, particularly my family and my close friends. And so I had this double life. And so coming out of that, I felt the shame of that and wanted to try and find a way out that didn't involve some level of exposure.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't possible. And so the weight of carrying that alone crushed me. And I had a very incredible relationship with my father. And he was my boss, my boss's boss at the time, so to speak. And so I'll never forget a day. It was on lunch in a Chinese restaurant, and in a booth. And I made the reveal and was met with grace. So what I needed was grace. What I was carrying was an unimaginable, unmanageable burden that was breaking me.
Well, what did he tell you to do, or did he?
Well, that's the thing. Like he didn't really provide any solutions. He just listened and accepted me, because I was already coming to him with what I felt like. Okay, these are the things I need. I'd been working a problem so long on my own and just breaking. And so it was really me just revealing and then having his support to take the next step to get into a supportive community, a recovery group that I could walk out my journey of recovery. So for me, his role was to listen, to receive, to be non-judgmental, which he did incredibly, and to then ask me the difficult but good question is, okay, now what? How are you ready to take action on this?
Well, we talk about this great quote from Bill W. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. But it's also, you said he just accepted me. He gave you grace. It's also the answer to other people's problems, especially when we can show it whenever we're expected to experience shame. Now, what about the codependency thing that happened there? How did that emerge, or how did you see that it was there?
Well, in the rooms, there is a saying that, every substance abuse addict is a codependent, but not every codependent is a substance abuse addict. So I kind of had this notion that there was some of that running underneath my substance abuse, addiction. So, but I didn't really own, didn't really own that until I got into a relationship where I could clearly see that I was stuck in a control pattern of trying to manage the uncomfortability of my insides in a relationship with somebody else by control and manipulation.
Well, let me stop you there. I got to go to a break. I want to hear more about that. But I went to some of the great meetings in Laguna Beach where many of the founders of AA First People in Recovery went, and I watched some of these guys that had the most recovery ever go from attending just the big addiction meeting to ending up, and I would go to them, to Al-Anon meetings with them because they wanted a deeper, richer kind of recovery. It does go hand in hand. We're going to take a break. We'll come right back with more of Jack West. If you need a recovery Bible, 1-800-NEW-LIFE, or you want to find out how to get in the Life Recovery Group, you call that number. We'll be back after this.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis, someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Thanks for coming back to Life Recovery Today. By the way, we started Life Recovery, Dave Stoop and myself, Dr. Stoop. He died on March the 10th. We have a new book out. It's the last book that we did together. It's called The Soul of a Hero. And you can get a copy of that by calling 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Seven different elements of what a biblical hero is all about. But we're talking to Jack West, and Jack, thanks for joining me here. And you've mentioned cocaine addiction and then discovering this codependency. How is recovering from codependency different, if it is, from recovering from a cocaine addiction or any addiction?
Yeah. Well, for me, interestingly enough, one of the things that in my first round of recovery, as I was battling my substance abuse patterns, was there was so much energy put into sort of creating that structure to not engage in that behavior and put those things in my body that I kind of neglected sort of the emotional component of that cycle. Now, I definitely was able to arrest the development of the cycle. I had my recovery, my calls, my people, my program. But what codependency really showed me was that a lot of what I was attempting to do with the drugs, I was managing internal discomfort. Right now, they teach you about that, but I didn't really see how that was actually playing out on my everyday world. So for me, the substance abuse was really a medicator for this dis-ease, that not being able to connect in relationship, and not being able to connect in relationship was squarely within this pattern of trying to then, kind of control everyone around me in different ways. Some subtle, some overt, some, even where it looks like I'm the one that's, being sort of self-deprecating or managed. But the idea is, I realized that a lot of my emotional turmoil I was trying to sort of manage in relationship. And of course, I've always been in relationships. I've had, so that's just been a feature of my life. And then realizing that recovery from that is much more difficult because I now have to really pay closely attention to emotional regulation. And then, of course, the complexity of bringing that out in healthy ways in relationship.
Well, I have a little theory here. I have a couple, but I'll throw this one out. And that is that everyone, to some degree or another, feels uncomfortable. Even, if you have the most wonderful home life, you can feel uncomfortable because, well, you don't know how you're going to do when you get out in the real world, or people are mean to you or whatever. And that everybody is kind of inadequate to handle it. And so we do certain things that aren't healthy to try to manage that. But like in the case of cocaine or alcohol, if you have a high tolerance, other people, they kind of grow up and they develop the ability to do that. But before we can do that, we get hooked on a chemical, get addicted to it, and so it just stops, the maturing process stops. Or we land on another person and end up in this codependency, and that sticks with us. And so while the rest of the people are growing and maturing, we're stuck until recovery kind of propels us into growing up, maybe for the first time.
Yeah. I think that's so true, and a lot of that is emotional maturity. I mean, we bring that out in relationship, and I think that was the case for me. Is I was very emotionally immature, and I think my codependent sort of patterns were set in place in my family of origin before I even started using. Like, that was just a way that we kind of related to each other.
How is that? So how did that play out? Was it mom, dad relating to you, or how was that?
Well, there was kind of a pattern of when things broke down in relationship in my world, for me, just cutting off communication, cutting off emotional engagement, kind of walking out of the room, and so for me, avoiding conflict then was also another part of that. So I would get in conflict, cut off, walk away, or just do things to avoid the hard conversations, which that develops in different life stages, but that's kind of, and then people pleasing. Yeah. I mean, that was another thing. I mean, I was known, there's a story in my family my mom tells, I was the yeah, sure kid. I mean, before my memories start, my narrative memories, I was saying yes to everything because I knew I could connect that way. If I said yes, people were more happy. Yeah. And so there are the seeds there planted.
If my wife was here, Jack, she'd be saying, wow, you and Steve must have been raised in the same family at the same time, because, I mean, you're describing my life exactly, and it's so fascinating to hear it. So you've been in recovery, you're leading people in the recovery process. Mariners just has a wonderful program of recovering from addiction, recovering from depression, anxiety, a lot of different things. It's not just limited to alcohol, drugs, something like that. Can you tell us something that you think is really important for anybody that's either in recovery or they're watching this and they haven't made that profound step forward of saying, you know what, in and of myself, I do not have the power to take control of my life and this problem? What's a really good recovery truth that you could leave us with?
Well, it's kind of a thread I've been pulling on, and one I've really been leaning hard on at Mariners is that emotional health and emotional maturity and spiritual maturity are inseparable. And so a lot of the things we traditionally think about recovery, whether it's labels like codependency or addiction or porn addiction, these things are just symptoms of a dysregulated nervous system, inability to cope, kind of us trying to manage the dis-ease of what we're experiencing on the inside and sometimes on the outside. And so for me, the big kind of recovery key that we follow closely with at Mariners is that we're trying to help people mature as disciples spiritually and emotionally. And really, addiction and recovery just are part of the way we express that maturation journey. So we have kind of a wide but generous in path for folks in recovery, and so we're inviting them into really not just looking at the labels or the kind of the labels of addiction, but say, okay, where's the unmanageability in my life? Anywhere. Yeah. And so we're saying is emotional dysregulation and inability to kind of make effective repair in relationships. Some of these like very relational dynamics are part of what helps us see, hey, we need to grow and we need to mature, and recovery is a way to express that.
Well, you know, when Dave Stoop and I developed life recovery and what that was going to entail, we really did believe, we had experienced it in our own lives, that recovery was for everybody, that there is something, a deregulation, an emotional trauma or discomfort, or something, a mistake to overcome, a shameful thing that you'd like to stop regretting for the rest of your life. We all have an area that needs recovery, and you know, if you can find a better way to do that than in groups and using 12 steps and it works for you, that's great. But here is a tried and true way to get better, no matter what the problem is, are these 12 steps, which all fit right there with our scripture. Jack, anything different or any trend that you've noticed, may not be, since the COVID crisis occurred over the past year? Anything different happening at Mariners that maybe wouldn't have?
Well, we're seeing a huge increase of people coming into recovery. We're seeing of all types, but specifically addiction and codependency and some of these things we've talked about. The pandemic just sort of was a great reveal, and it just pulled away a lot of the structures and sort of ways that we've kind of, you know, we can mediate between what's really going on in our lives, and so it kind of revealed the unmanageability of our lives, and it's been beautiful, and you know, it's beautiful in a kind of a, you know, bittersweet way. It's beautiful that people are becoming aware, and then they're finding help.
Yeah, I think that's true, and that's what we find at New Life. So many people wanting help, and maybe they needed to stay home for a while and sit there and then finally realize, I really do need to get a little bit of assistance here. One final thing. If somebody needs recovery, but they've absolutely convinced themselves, hey, I can do this on my own. I've got it. This time is going to be different. What do you say to that person to help them get over that denial?
Yeah, the thing that I would say is that you belong, and that there is a place where you can connect with people, that this thing that you want to do on your own doesn't have to be done on your own, and that there is a place where you will be accepted and received as you are, and that's the only foundation I've found that works for long-term recovery.
Amen.
Is that sense of I belong somewhere.
Well, Jack, I really appreciate you as a person. I appreciate how kind you've been to us at New Life and with Life Recovery. And I pray blessing upon you and any of you in the Southern California area, or if you ever go and visit, be sure and check out some of the recovery meetings there at Mariners in Newport Beach. I'll have a final word right after this. I want to talk to you about the artist who is God.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here. Really appreciate Jack West being on the program. I love what little kids say and how they get confused. Amelia, when she was growing up, she didn't say confused, she said be-fused, and I thought that was darling. One little boy said that he knew that Jesus had flown in an airplane and that Pontius was his pilot. But the one I love most is a little girl who was praying the Lord's Prayer, and she said, Our Father who does art in heaven. Now, I got to tell you, that really is true to fact and form of who God is. He is an artist. And what a canvas here on this little beautiful marble in the midst of a very big and dark universe. And what he wants to do with every one of us is to take every fragment of our life, every broken, cracked piece, all the ugly stuff, and put it together, and as a master artist, put it together in a beautiful picture of His grace and His mercy. Not His anger, bitterness, resentment, shoving you aside, but bringing you back, and as I said earlier, finding a new purpose, repurposing all that stuff into something that honors Him and builds the kingdom of God. Let God be the artist in your life, and that requires that old-fashioned word, surrender. If you need help with that, you call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE, and I will see you next time right here on Life Recovery Today.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.